Buckle up for AEC Trailblazers, the Founders Files, where we crack open the stories of the brightest minds in the AEC startup scene. Forget institutional pitches. We're diving deep into the real personal journeys of these industry disruptors. Get ready for some casual chats firsthand.
Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of the AC Trailblazers podcast, where we interview the most amazing founders of the AC. Today with us, we have Oded. He's the CEO of Clue Insights, a software company transforming construction equipment management with over 20 years of experience in mobile and software as a service. Oded has held leadership roles with startups and enterprises like Microsoft, NCR, and TouchNote. His mission is to drive productivity in underserved industries. Thanks for doing that for our industry, especially construction. When he's not driving innovation at Clue, Oded loves exploring new destinations with his family and traveling worldwide. Oded, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Valentin. Great to speak with you today.
Did I miss something from your bio?
No, probably already overinflating it, but that was great.
Oh man, I've seen what you have been doing. A lot of fun stuff, and I love that you're a successful entrepreneur that decided to suffer with us in the AC. But how do you? Can you tell us a little bit about your experience being an entrepreneur? How you ended up doing your own thing?
I would say most of my career, for some reason, started in the world of mobile applications, mobile software. Even in the days where people didn't have a smartphone. We sometimes think that the world started with the iPhone or Android, but even 10, 20 years earlier, people were using Pocket PC and other handheld devices. So one thing led to the other. That's where I started my career in software. And fast forward many, many years later, I was involved in businesses that were building mobile apps and mobile software across different industries. And as I was wrapping up my role at one company that I was running, my introduction to construction was very seamless. A few floors above me, my two co-founders were working on an idea about transforming the efficiency of equipment operations in construction. That's a space where they came from. I came from the world of mobile software and building businesses, and we clicked on very, very quickly.
Interesting. How is it? You have experience with other founders and other entrepreneurs and other industries. What do you think differentiates entrepreneurs from the AC compared to other industries?
What differentiates entrepreneurs at construction AC from others?
From other industries?
Yeah.
Like, for example... Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I think... I guess also first you say the successful entrepreneurs. I'd say like every industry, like everything in life, you very quickly have people who are trying this, and after 6 months or a year, they realize, oh, that was probably a big mistake to go into that direction. So let's confine this to entrepreneurs that didn't run away after a year, right? I think there's a level of... it's a bit hard to explain, it's like food that not everyone likes, but you like. In construction and AEC specifically, I found to be that I absolutely love it. I absolutely relish the interaction with people. We work in horizontal construction, or heavy construction, some people call it. And the people we deal with on a day-to-day basis are so down to earth, no pun intended. And the humility and the joy of working with them, for me, has been enormous. And I think ultimately there's a stage in life where you really ought to choose something that you enjoy doing on a regular basis. Warren Buffett used to call it tap dancing to work. He used to say he's tap dancing to work. And whether you're tap dancing to work or not, there's a certain stage where you realize it's very hard for you to do anything successful in life in general, let alone if you don't absolutely enjoy it and love it. So I would hazard a guess that every successful person I've seen innovating or trying to do things in construction, they really come with lots of joy and enthusiasm, and it is not driven by just need to make a quick buck or build something. They truly enjoy serving the industry. And when you come from that place, great things happen.
Well, I love what you said, because I was just wrapping your comments in my mind, and even when we could absolutely say that most people who actually their business is successful as an entrepreneur truly enjoy what they do. Most of them do it. Otherwise, I'm not sure you can deal with years and years of doing something you don't like, the pain, aside from the hard work that is putting together in a startup. But I also feel that at the same time, the only way you can define success is just doing what you want, just enjoying what you do. Otherwise, it's, even if you make money, who cares? Like, who cares? If you're not enjoying it, it's like you're just wasting your time and effort. And it's a little bit philosophical.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, philosophy is the love of knowledge. So I think there's very few things in life one should love more than knowledge, right? But so I have no problem with philosophy. But, to also be practical, yes, the success comes from, maybe I'll take a step back. I'll say if you're in line with what you're doing, it'll be much more likely that you'll see success from that. But at the same time, there's absolutely nothing wrong about having pain. Meaning, often we only discover what we like and don't like by going through these pains, right? Anyone who dated more than one person in their lives and then eventually got married will tell you that they're grateful. Hopefully, they're grateful for the previous relationships and things that didn't work for them, right? So it's just a question, I guess, of time and a good dosage of humility. And knowing that as much as you think you are planning your own paths on the entrepreneurship and in general the career lane, a huge proportion of that, as close as possible to 100, comes of things completely out of your control. Some people can call it luck, some call it other things, but truth to be told, there's very little actually that one should then take and say, I did it on my own. Probably unlikely.
Yeah, no. It would be easy if you could just say, I'm going to build this, and everybody will like it, and everybody will purchase it, and it's going to be successful in 3 years, and I'm going to sell it. And it never works that way. You always make a pivot. You always, and that's also part of the journey, I guess, and knowing you have to be relentless, but you need to know when to pivot.
Yeah, and I think sometimes I listen to podcasts, and I would hope this episode, like many other episodes, will be very practical for anyone who's bothering listening. So I'll try to share some practical things that I wish I knew 10 or 20 years ago. And the first one is what you just said now, and that is often it's very easy to fall in love with the product or the idea you've got. First, I recommend if you do it, go ahead, do it. And I wish you really pain and failure, because only from that you'll realize what a lot of people talk in the startup community in the past few years, and that is you don't start actually from the product. You really start from customer discovery. In construction, most of all, it's true. And customer discovery means you don't build a product and hope they come. You go to the patient, and in this case, it's the client. Maybe it's the contractor. If you're in vertical, it'll be whomever you're trying to serve. And you're really trying first to listen. What's not working today in the way that you think it could or it should? Okay, just like a doctor, you come to the doctor and you ask a question. You don't just come and tell them, I am going to straighten your teeth. Maybe they have no problem with their teeth, right? And that's really a customer discovery. So to give that advice, if you love the industry and you feel, okay, there's a good opportunity here, don't fall in love with your product. Instead, spend time with with a person you're aiming to serve, and really, really understand well what are they trying to achieve today that they cannot achieve, and design your product to serve that. as opposed to the other way around, which is how I know I certainly followed unsuccessfully for a long time previously.
Well, I think failure is part of a journey to success. So that's a good thing. And also, what you said, customer success story, is something that seems so easy, seems so obvious, but it's also hard at the same time because we have ego. And when you speak with 2 or 3 clients, you think, I know what they want, and then you start building, and that's the first mistake you can make. It's like you need to be obsessed with speaking with potential clients and do it all the time, no matter if you're no matter the face of your product.
Yeah, it's and I don't, I can certainly and certainly continue to do the same mistake of jumping in. And I think there's 2 things you said here. One of them is really about listening, and the other one was about ego, and they're both somewhat connected. Let's maybe tackle the first one, and maybe we'll get to that later. But for many entrepreneurs, the reason they're entrepreneurs is because they don't have $10 million in their bank account. So they're going into the startup world in the hope of making a big buck. And the way to raise money is from typically VCs, venture capital. Very, very few end up raising it from more patient capital, be it private equity or institutional. Now, VC money is the least patient money you can think of. Maybe that was exaggeration. I'm sure going to some random person in the street is a bit less patient, right? But good luck with that, right? But in all seriousness, for venture, you need to understand the world of the venture world, and because of that, that game is really a game of fund returners. So anyone having never raised money from a VC need to understand the goal of the VC is to have 1 or 2% of their portfolio companies being a fund returner. So it's one company that returns 100 times the investment. That's how the fund makes their money. Okay, therefore they bet big, and they want to go big or go home. In that world, for you to raise money and have very little ego is a bit tricky, especially if you're in your 20s and 30s. It's about in the zoo being the monkey that does the biggest noise and strongest noise that actually gets the attention. Okay, and that creates a bit of a potentially a challenge for some industries like construction, which really couldn't care less about the monkeys that make the biggest noise. They've been there before you, they'll be there after you, and they're not interested in your speed and your VC's need to return the fund next year. And that's really about ego. And there is, in my opinion, an inherent tension between the venture capital model and its dynamics, and between what would work for other industries. And we can definitely explore that. And the second thing is really with regards to listening. And listening is one of these things I've been told for so many years, since probably the second I opened my mouth, how important it is. But it doesn't matter. Like it's for some entrepreneurs, I know for me is it's something that is very non-intuitive necessarily to be able to shut up and to listen to customer and do active listening. And again, the only way sometimes you learn is from falling really hard in your face, and then change occurs. So if you're really terrible listening, that's fine. I just wish you to have a fall in your face that's not going to hurt too much, and then things might start changing.
Absolutely. I used to have a boss that used to tell me, when you do sales, there is a reason why you have 2 ears and 1 mouth, because you need to listen more than you speak. And that leads me to something that I'm curious, because in your case, right, at Clue, that your clients, right, it is the construction company that needs to manage the assets. Let's put it that way, right? But the ones who are gonna use the assets are other people, right? Like someone who's gonna be the operator of a crane or something. And how you deal with that duality when you have a client who's gonna be the one who purchases it, and one, and let's put a client and user, and well, you have a client and then you have a user. How you deal with that?
Yeah, in general, sales in the first place are hard. Sales in general are hard. Anyone who's doing sales, whether they are a BDR or an account executive, and that's like the Olympics of, in my opinion, of all roles you can have in your organization. And I've had the opportunity to do quite a few different things: product, marketing, holding the finance hat on, managerial. Truly, I cannot say there's anything more wonderful, but also challenging as sales. Okay, so that's first, just in general. When you're doing sales and already you should feel good. You opted for really the toughest function, in my opinion, in the organization. But then you talk specifically within sales. Not only sales is like combat. When you do enterprise sales or SaaS, people call it multi-threading, but it's a bit more like in The Princess Bride. I forgot the name of that character that then fights multiple people simultaneously. And sometimes that's how sales feels like, right? So you need to understand the dynamics of selling to an enterprise. The analogy of a fight is obviously completely inappropriate here, because if you already feel it's you versus them, you lost. But there is no easy answer. I read this really interesting, really lovely thing a few years ago, and that was all the easy problems, they've been solved. If you think you're going to listen to some podcast and someone is going to tell you some tip that if you follow that one tip, you're going to crack it. The easy problems have been solved. You were born in the wrong decade for that. Yeah. So the honest truth is you just need to listen and pick up the tidbits here and there. And then you listen to the same thing again and again. And all of a sudden, a year later, you hear completely different things. So it's less about what advice, it's whether you're receptive to that in terms of how to handle it.
Absolutely. No, I love when you said the easy problems have been solved already. And it's true. There might be problems that might seem easy, but they're not. Those are the tricky ones. But no, I do agree. And how's your experience in terms of like when you try to approach clients, or what's your approach with Glue on how it's going to be the return of investment, or how do you do it specifically in our industry?
So yeah,
let's put it like
yeah. I feel I give lots of disclaimers, and again, the reason I'm going to give first a disclaimer is because I used to read so many books with advice and listen. And the first advice I want to give is like, anyone who's listening, it's good what you're doing, but just remember that the plural of anecdotes is not data. So I'm going to give you the anecdotes of Clue and my experience, but that's not data. So you just first, I want to give that first as a disclaimer, okay? I don't pretend for 1 minute that the journey that we've had is the right. And you have to have a lot of arrogance to think that just because right now all systems are go, they're going to necessarily, all systems will be go in a year from now, or in 5 years from now, or in 20 years from now. So putting that disclaimer in advance, I can share a few things that worked for us. But again, I'm saying they worked because of the DNA of our team, okay? So the DNA of two of our co-founders, myself and my co-founder, Jaden, we're product people. Okay. Our first roles were involved as product managers or building products. So for me, it's very intuitive to build what's called PLG, or product-led growth. Some companies are sales-driven. They'll create some product. They may be even outsourcing the idea, but then they're really good at sales. And then they will sell it and they'll grow it that way. And you can easily see it, because if you open LinkedIn, you'll see how many people there are in sales and the key chief executives, what their background is, and a sales-driven company smells and behaves like a sales-driven company. A product-led company smells very differently. Okay, so what worked for us first is to have conviction in really two things. The first conviction is in Buddhism. It's called the first noble truth. that is the truth of suffering. And how do you apply that to entrepreneurship? Is the truth that the companies that we're here to serve, even if they don't know it yet, they're truly struggling, and there are issues in how they're doing things, even if they don't necessarily know it. What do I mean by that? That when you look at a company that makes margins of 5-10%, which is pretty much the case for almost every company in the horizontal construction, you might have an outlier making 15% in this year, but we all know the margins. This is probably the most stressful way to run a $100 million business. It's crazy stressful because you're running a $100 million business, and if your margins are 5%, that's 1 in 20. That means that you work 25 days of the month and you make your entire profit in the 26th or 27th day. It means you work the entire year, you make your entire profit in the last 2 weeks of the year. People don't understand what 5% margin is because our brain not very good at understanding percentages. So because of that, the amount of just pain, stress, headaches, struggles involved in managing the company is enormous. Okay? So the first one is to have really conviction and knowingness that when we now speak with a customer, sometimes they don't know the issue that they have themselves, but because we've done it, because we spoke with dozens of companies on our space, you start to see these repetitive patterns that occur. And how do you apply that to one's own business? You really ought to find a place they have really true conviction that what you're doing is serving them. There's a true pain here, a true need here. A few years ago, someone used the framework of vitamins versus painkillers, and they would say, is your business a vitamin or a painkiller? Some businesses are, vitamins. Like you'd say Instagram, maybe it's a vitamin. Don't have to have it. The truth is Instagram is not a vitamin, it's a painkiller. People feel loneliness, they want to maybe have a partner, there are many, many things, and it kills that pain. Maybe they're bored. It's a painkiller for boredom. Yeah. Okay. Now, again, we're not going too philosophical, but the point is just to say that until such point where you have, as a founder, you have identified the pain, you truly understand it intimately, you can sympathize with it and understand it, it's very problematic for you to try to solve it. So that will be first piece of advice, what changed in how we've done things. In the first year, we thought we were a vitamin. We're a vitamin for companies that want to improve a bit their idling of their equipment, which, frankly speaking, most companies, it's not important enough. Okay, they took us some time to understand what really is their pain. So that's the first one. I said there are two things. So the first one was the truth of suffering, and the second one doesn't happen immediately. It happens only years later after you really worked hard and you had the luck that you have a solution for that. And you have to arrive at a point that you have full conviction that you can alleviate and solve that pain for them. Albeit perhaps temporarily for the next few years. Don't have arrogance to think you're going to solve it forever. Don't think you're going to solve all their pains. But you build a product and you build a company that you can truthfully come in front of a customer and tell them, we understand your pain, we hear you, we solved it numerous times, and I can tell a customer, we eating this problem for breakfast. You're not on your own here. And we worked and we have case-by-case basis of companies that have been in your state, and we know why you go here. This is why you go here, but it's solvable. And if there's good alignment between what we do and how you view the problem, then we're open to work together on that. And that takes, at the beginning, you fake it until you make it. So you'll sell something you maybe don't have, and you will fail a bit because of that, but it's a necessity. But that's really the second point. And you hope that you'll be able to build that solution before you run out of money. Before you have to do things that you're, telling people you're doing something when you really don't do, because then you'll just fail, right? Sadly, a lot of not a lot. We say the terrible cases we hear giving bad name to other startups are the cases where a problem has been identified and the founder chose to go down a route or a path that pretends they have a solution where they had none. And
fairness?
Yeah, there are many, right? There are not many, sorry. It's not true to say there are many. But there are, like everything, there'll be the extreme. There'll be the 0.1% of companies that give the other 99% of companies a bad name. And here I don't need to have too much advice. Our rule in Clue, one of our values is don't do anything that you would be embarrassed if your mom or dad or child or partner knew about. Okay? And that's really it. That's our version of Google's do no evil. So we made it really simple. Don't do anything you'd be embarrassed if someone you care about knew.
Like the phrase, be nice to each other, I think it is. And I love both of them. And when you said on the first advice that on the first year you were considering yourself as vitamin, that was something that you realize over time, like, hey, we're vitamin, not a painkiller, or from the get-go you were considering yourself a vitamin?
It's like most things in life which are annoying flow. So you'd pick up a sport, and I tried to pick up kite surfing for the last 20 years. And, it's only once you're in the flow, like you just get it right, that you feel. So until such point, you're really trying hard. The first time one tries to ride a bike, the first time you drive a car, no one wants to be with a new driver in the car. Why? Because annoying slow. When you finally drive, you can do things that are probably not safe, but you can do them. You can turn on the radio, or you can pick up a phone 1 second. I'm not trying to encourage unsafe behavior, but you get the drift. So I think it's very, very normal in the first year, or could be longer than that, could be shorter, that it just doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel right. In flow. You're operating with the handbrake up. You go into a meeting with a customer, and they say something, and you pretend to know what they're talking about, and then you quickly run to Google what the hell they meant, or some system. And that's just a fast learning curve. And you can, that's part of the reason some successful entrepreneurs are those coming from the industry, because their starting point is significantly later on, right? So if you're an estimator and you've been working for years in estimating and you're using really terrible estimating software, you really know the ins and outs of P6 or something else, then you can come and you know how to deal with that. But even then, it takes a bit of time to really understand. There's so many moving pieces, so you understand the problem. A different thing is you also want to solve a problem that's big enough, large enough, because you don't want to find yourself a few years down the line realizing, okay, I'm solving a problem only for companies of this shape, doing these projects. You won't be able to hire and scale it. Okay, you might be a good consultant there. So there really are truly many moving pieces, and it's just about being very mindful and tuned in to if it doesn't feel right, that's fine. Don't spend too much time, ruminating, but just now, okay, go deeper and deeper and deeper, and listening and spending more time with customers is often a really good way to do it. If you're there to truly serve them. Yeah.
It makes sense. It makes sense. Absolutely. But do you consider that in your case that, well, you don't come from the industry, but I do think that when you come from the industry, it's also a double-edged sword, because true, you have the advantage because you know the industry, but at the same time, that can be a problem if your ego is too big. That typically happens to all of us in a certain period of time in our life, that you think you already know, because you have been estimated so many times and you have been using crappy software, and I want to do the best estimating software, and your experience is limited, even if you have been doing it for years, and your ego might turn to just do what you want instead of going and ask potential clients how to do it. So, it's a balance between
Yeah,
both things.
true. I mean, we said the word ego, again, it means different things. And as long as someone experiences ego, they can still take the ego to places where they are of service and places where they're not, right? So, for example, if you're hiring someone and you pretend you have no ego whatsoever, you have no ambition whatsoever, you won't be doing a service to the job candidate because they probably wouldn't want to work for you. They see no leadership and no sign. If, on the other hand, your ego means that when you speak with a customer, you don't let them finish a sentence and you tell them, I know the solution better than you, as I can certainly put my hand up and say I've done way more many times than I wish to remember, that's not ego in the service of you. So first, I just want to put that, the word of ego aside. In Hebrew or in Yiddish, which is German Hebrew, basically, the word chutzpah. And
Chutzpah.
yeah, chutzpah is Chutzpah. What does it mean? It means a certain level of cute arrogance, I would call it. It's not really translatable. What is cute arrogance? If you're an entrepreneur, by definition, you have to have a bit of chutzpah. Why? Because you're basically telling the world you are not okay as you are. Because if things were okay as they are, no one needs your product. No one needs your business. So there is a bit of, you use the word duality, or there's a bit of duality. You need to have respect for how things were done before, because there's a reason they were done in a certain way. But you also need to have enough chutzpah to come and say, I think I know better. I think I know different. And if you don't have that level of desire and challenger mentality, then you're missing a really crucial engine in the entrepreneurial journey. So that's with regards to ego. I think that's where it's healthy. Okay. Now, if you come from the industry, you can be an intrapreneur, intra with an I, and so entra from, right, coming from a company. And you could have been someone who really in the company didn't find themselves. You may have worked for one of the largest companies. I know you worked for Acom or Turner or Skanska, and you never felt at home. You felt like, any good idea I had, management shut it down. It's a good thing. That means you have a bit of chutzpah. You think you see things differently. Great. Or you could be the person in the Shawshank Redemption, where they're worried he's getting too indoctrinated by being in the system, and that doesn't serve you well. Because or maybe the person from the Matrix, right? Like, I know this steak is fake, but it tastes so good. So the current systems are terrible, but I'm used to them, right? So then it doesn't serve you right. But there's nothing wrong about coming from within the system or outside of the system. It's more about the mindset at which you're coming to it.
No, absolutely. I agree. And I've heard the word chutzpah before, and I really like the meaning because, true, there is not a direct translation to English. But consider specifically that you guys are on a specific part of the industry. It's not that you do design, construction, maintenance. You do construction, and you deal with like how do you define it? Like
equipment. We define our space as the equipment management space. Yeah.
Equipment management space. Let's define it like that. What variations do you feel are between having a client on heavy machinery equipment space compared to like labor, or compared to other areas of the construction phase of the industry?
Well, first, I guess the construction is a huge industry, of course, in general. I'm not even talking about design. I'm just talking about the GC world or subcontractors world. And within that, it takes a bit of time for those outside the industry just to map the subset. And it's important that takes a few days or weeks or months or years, depending on your faculties. Now, once you map that, again, horizontal construction, which is a space of whether it's highway and road or bridge or earthwork operations or setting up a scene, is very different, hugely different from commercial or residential, okay, or facilities. So first, each one of them is a world on its own, right? Truly a world of its own. Why are we solving problems to horizontal construction? We ended up there. I cannot say the confluence of causes and conditions that led us to no, but that's our focus. It's a huge industry. In the US alone, I believe the heavy construction industry or the horizontal is over $200 billion. So our total addressable market is gigantic in the US alone. Why do we deal with equipment? Because it's really well aligned with the DNA of what we love doing as founders and as team. I happen to enjoy languages. And a lot of what Clue does, in the first day, we said we want to be this Google Translate for all the systems you currently have. So people in construction will be using a lot of systems. They'll use every one of the manufacturer systems. So Caterpillar has their own system called VisionLink, and John Deere has JD-Link, and Komatsu has Comtrax, and so on. And I could go on for the next 40 systems. And then on-road vehicles, they have their own GPS systems. You could use the Ford system, where you can use a company like Geotab or Samsara or Verizon, and so on and so on. And then companies also have ERP. They have the system done for accounting, whether it's Viewpoint, Vista, or Spectrum, or Oracle, JDE, and so on and so on. And I could go on and on and on and on. Long story short, the problem is not that they have no systems. The problem is not that they have no data. The problem that we've seen is that this data is not connected. It's not integrated. And then their ability to make decisions on real time are extremely inhibited. And the tools they currently have in place are limited in their capacity. So we thought, okay, how about we don't make anyone have to change anything? What would it look like if you could have one system to connect everything without having to change anything? And why they use translation? Because it's very similar. You go to Google Translate and you can speak French and it translates to English, and you speak Spanish, translates to English, and so on and so on. So we translate all these pieces of data into to one system. They see it all. And some people collect stamps, some people collect cars. We collect APIs, we collect integrations. We have over 70, and like every language that you learn, it's not about pretending that you can speak the language. Like, yo habla español. Like, you're not going to fool anyone if you just integrate it that way. You really need to know the integral part of every language. And, Spaniards and Argentinians speak a very different Spanish, and they know the in and out of each one of these languages. So that's been our focus. And the reason we did it in machinery is because machinery presents these massive opportunity right now. We do not believe that all machines will be speaking English. We believe for the next 10, 20 years, Caterpillar will speak Caterpillarish, John Deere will speak John Deere-ish, Komatsu will speak Komatsu-ish. And there is a need to standardize, normalize, scrub, migrate the data in one place, and then give the end user a really easy tool to do what they're here to do, which might just be to schedule a maintenance service or generate a work order or see the low oil alert, and without caring whether they can speak English, Spanish, French, and so on.
And besides Connect and all that, which is impressive because it's a reality that not only in machinery, in general, our industries, the data is fragmented and most of us don't talk to each other, and it's a reality. But what would you think the biggest impact, if you can give me practical examples on, like on the implementation of, after the implementation of Glue, is it on the maintenance side? Is it on the availability of the machine and how to allocate it on specific projects? Or where do you feel is when you see more happiness in the face of your clients when integrating all these tools into Glue?
Yeah, a great question. And I say first, we don't pay the bills with happiness. We only pay with dollars. So we look very clearly on the ROI. So ROI in heavy construction is fairly straightforward. For most companies, equipment is about a third of their balance sheet. So that means the company with $100 million of revenues, whatever, let's just, for simplicity, say their balance sheet is $100 million. They probably have $30 million on equipment. Okay, that potentially excludes the fuel costs, which could be significant. So for companies, there are maybe 5 buckets that we've seen companies do tremendous improvement on. The first is really utilization. So if you've got $30 million worth of equipment on the balance sheet, ultimately it needs to generate return, right? Otherwise, you can put it in the bank and there are 5% on that, $1.5 million a year. So the return on equipment is really the ability to utilize it well. And utilization is much harder said than done. And anyone who drives on the highway and see a bunch of excavators and dozers sitting without any usage for day after day, that's what we mean. We actually mean underutilization. Okay. So that's really one area. And the reason things are underutilized is because it's actually hugely complex to get the information to the right person to make the right decision, so then decide to move the asset in the right time when it's no longer needed, instead of perhaps renting one from another place. That piece of data is looks really simple from the outside. Anyone wants to build a system, I bow in recognition to their insanity of trying to rebuild this. So that's really one. I talk about utilization, I talk about idling. Another area which is really significant, people don't realize how expensive this machinery is. You buy a Caterpillar D6, a dozer, you talk about hundreds of thousands of dollars. And often companies would make maybe 20 purchases a year, maybe 100. 1, 2, 3, maybe 5% of these purchases should not have been made. That's a capital expenditure that's significant. And it was a wrong decision from a financial perspective because they're not utilizing it. So right-sizing the fleet, managing the fleet size is huge. That's another area. Maintenance costs, called repair and maintenance, or R&M, or parts and labor, are, again, huge area on the P&L, on the profit and loss. And it's actually very hard to hire mechanics these days. So you're stuck with the resources that you've got. But being able to get your mechanic or field tech or oiler to do more services a day without them simply throwing the towel and moving to a competitor that's not going to ask them to work as hard is tricky. And we found that really giving them a tool that helps them do their work faster and easier is huge here. Okay? What does that translate to? Are you getting more services done, more proactive maintenance done, and so on with the resources you have? And we had like a case study to go straight to numbers. A company, for example, with about 500 assets, they estimated saving over $1 million in the first year alone using Clue. There was a company that literally tripled the average number of field services their loop truck and their field tech were doing. I used to average about 2 services a day. Services means oil filters, daily maintenance. They tripled it from 2 to 6 because finally the guys had access to see all the information where it is and tracking and tasking it. So much more streamlined. We had another cases of companies literally switching down from almost 20 different systems, 20 systems logins to one with Clue. So it's going to be 1 key, 20 keys, they had 1 key to get all access to all the data. So that's really about, we call this streamlining your equipment operations because it's about that. And when you combine that with an industry that makes 5% margin, this translates into, it goes straight to the bottom line. You save $1 million, your bottom line, you just do the math. If you have 5%, you make $5 million, you save $1 million, you just boosted your bottom line by 20%. And the equipment team then really becomes a strategic asset as opposed to a liability. Again, no pun intended, but most people look at equipment as liability. It's an asset if you manage it correctly.
No, and I think it's something that everybody who's been in construction have seen. Like you said, machines next to the road, sitting there, doing nothing for days, even weeks sometime, and it's a reality. And the good thing is like having a platform that allows you to actually be able to manage those assets properly, to make the maintenance properly. It makes so much sense. It's just insane that something like this, if you compare it, like, let's do an analogy that it's not the same, but like companies that rent cars, right? They have a system that is, you rent a car, as soon as you get it, they wash it, and then as soon as you wash it, someone is rent it again, and and so on and so forth. I know this is much more complex, but where I'm going is like these companies have had systems for years, years and years, and it doesn't matter if the brand of the car or they have done it for decades. And us in the industry is something that we haven't had until you guys developed this. So for sure, I could see the savings that these companies are getting by properly managing these assets were like really expensive to maintain and really expensive to just leave them next to the road, not being used.
Yeah, and I want to be fair. The industry obviously did have solutions. First, the solution is pen and paper. That's a solution. A spreadsheet, that's a solution. There have been software, of course, well before us. You never want to go to a business thinking you're the first. Highly likely, if you're the first, there's a reason you're the first. Maybe because it's not that big of a business. So, of course, we came to a business space that there are solutions. But software is probably one of the least forgiving industries. So virtually every company that in our space started 10 years ago, if not 30 years ago. Now, what do I mean when I say it's not forgiving? Well, in equipment management, if you started 10 years ago, that's pretty much before telematics even really took off. It's definitely before most companies started to move to the cloud. It's most definitely before AI, because ChatGPT only existed for the last 2.5 years in any meaningful sense. And it's definitely before folks started to use smartphones on the job site. So our advantage has been to really come with just fresh foundation. Software, because it's not forgiving, trying to rebuild the software that exists in the market right now would entail an enormous amount of work that most companies, frankly, are not going to do. It'll be like literally rewriting Windows 3.11 or MS-DOS now and trying to make it what it is now. So companies like Microsoft, Apple, they've got the resources to rebuild the entire operating system from scratch. Most companies that are industry-specific would probably not do that. And they end up either just acquiring other companies or letting slowly that software die. And that's just the nature of software. And that's the beauty of also enterprise software. It does have a cycle. And right now in that cycle, we're the fresh trees that were planted 5 years ago on a really, really fertile ground of cloud, AI, mobile, telematics, whereby past services that were built on a very, very different ground, their ability to produce the same fruits and be flexible for people's needs, it's nothing that they've done wrong. They were created on a different stack of technology that would not lend themselves to solving people's needs, and that's just the cycle and the nature of the ecosystem of software.
No, absolutely. But enough speaking about the past. What lays in the future for Clue, or what are you thinking for the next coming year or two on your roadmap?
So I noticed most people in podcasts, they never share immediately say, okay, what we're working on for the next 2 years is this particular project, right? So obviously there are, I would say people do ask to get a bit of a sense of vision, where you're going with this. So we are extremely focused, laser focused on the horizontal construction industry. We built the company in reverse. Most companies are built from the headquarters or from the back office to the field. You build a good financial system, then you add an estimating module, and then you add a field management module, then you add equipment management module, and in the end you build some mobile app. It's probably really clunky to use. That's how most software systems were built. Clue was built in reverse. We first built a mobile app for the field user. And then we built a system for the shop manager. And then we built it for the equipment manager. And then we built for the owner to see something. We built it in reverse on purpose. Why? Because the biggest pain was for the field users. They didn't have all the goodness of the system, relative goodness, I should say, that the back office folks have. So in the next few years, we are continuing our journey in reverse. We're solving right now problems for anyone dealing with equipment. That includes the operators and the foremen and equipment managers and mechanics, maintenance, shop managers, dispatchers, fuelers. There are areas that we haven't yet solved, and they have huge need in the field. There are areas that we haven't solved yet, and they have a huge need in the office. And that's where we're going with this, because that data can be connected to be used in a more meaningful sense. So that when you right now bid for a job, what's your ability to bid for the job based on the data of the last job that was done? You can try to solve it with AI front to end. Take the historical data previously and then do it that way. Or you can actually do it from the end to the start, meaning what's happening right now on that job that I can learn from to inform the next project I'm bidding on. What can I learn right now from the rates of rentals, and much, much, much more information. And I don't think there's a right answer. What's going to win? Starting from one side to the other, or from the end to the start. But we're continuing, and there's plenty more module software that our customers are telling us, please, can we solve this problem? The one thing I'll we danced around in terms of building is really regularly, if companies were to follow LinkedIn, our company Clue, they will see that there's not been a single feature, a single module that we built that didn't come directly from a customer request. And it doesn't mean that if customer says I want ice cream in mustard flavor, we're going to go ahead and build it, okay? You have to exercise some common sense as the chef of the product. But that's really how we've been driving. Success has been that every single flavor of ice cream we offered immediately had multiple people clamoring for and enjoying and telling their friends, this is the best module, or the best feature, or the best thing that we built, because it solved their need, it solved what they needed, as opposed to come from, we just had an idea to build something. So the reason I don't know how to give a clear answer as well is because I just don't know what flavor of ice cream some customers are going to ask us to build in 6 months from now.
That's a really, really good answer. And with that, before we wrap this up, can I ask a couple of ping-pong questions?
Sure.
Can you tell me a great AC software?
We'll pause here because I did prepare for this. 1 second. I need to think the one I picked up for you. Give me. Oh, yes. Okay. Ask the question again because you'll cut there.
All right. Can you tell me a great AC software?
Yeah. There's one software that is somewhat in our space, but not so much, is Fleetio. They offer it much more for on-road fleets, but they really built a great product. It's predominantly for on-road and fleets in general, but they seem to have done a really fantastic job. You know what? 1 second, stop here. I just realized 1 second, Valentin. Sure. I'm going to give you a different one, because as I thought about last time of that one, I thought immediately someone's going to listen to it and then tell me, why did you not speak about us instead? So give me a minute.
Absolutely.
Give me a minute. I want to give you a good one, okay? But one that I'm not messing myself. I need to be smart about that one. Okay, I'm going to give you that.
Sure.
I'm going to give you cartographs. They're really good. Okay. Let's do it again. You go.
All right. Can you tell me a great AC software?
Yeah, there's one software that I've seen I was super impressed with. It's not so much in our space, but it's called Cartograph. Might be butchering the name, Cartograph, C-A-R-T-E, Graph. And I recently got acquired by OpenGov, and they do asset management for all the stuff you don't even think about, like street signs and all this stuff on the roads, all this stuff that you take for granted that you live in a wonderful country like the US and things just mostly seem to work. and great UI. And from the little I've seen, I was really impressed with that. So again, that would be one that I choose.
Never heard of that, but makes sense. Good idea. What do you think is going to be the next trend in the AC?
There's one thing that's clearly happening, and that's remote controlled machinery. There are companies already providing it, testing it. It's inevitable. I would say from everyone listening to the podcast, I don't know how many of them are encouraging their children to become excavator operators or dozer mechanics. And the need to build and shape the built environment is not going to decrease in the next 20 years. And therefore, we're going to have a resource problem. And one of the way people are trying to solve that resource problem is by automating and having remote control and letting an operator maybe manage multiple pieces of equipment simultaneously. In the military, there are already solutions such as, operating machinery, probably more to destroy than to build. That's a whole different subject. Yeah. So I think that's clearly a trend that's happening. Another trend that is happening in industry in general is there's more and more consolidation. And when there's more consolidation, it presents opportunities for management. And how do you create management of a company that has now multiple joint ventures or multiple subsidiaries, and a whole different capacity of complexity as well, just from a business perspective. So I'd say these two are definitely trends that are affecting industry right now.
Cool. If you could collaborate with any person in history, which person would you choose?
Let's define that. Collaborate on what? Just invite for a dinner?
Whatever you want. You can just do a dinner. You can do a project. You can hire it to work at Clue. Whatever you want.
For me, it's a very simple answer. Probably arrange a dinner with, let's say, I'll probably have the Buddha. I'll have Moses. I'll have Jesus Christ. And I'll have Muhammad, the prophet. And I'll sit with them and probably record it and show people that actually these four are actually probably in agreement on almost everything. Maybe we ought to listen to them.
Most likely they're going to have fun for sure. If you do that dinner, just let me know. I will swing by for sure.
I invite you to, yeah.
Yeah. And finally, what's your favorite building in the world and have you ever visited?
Well, my favorite building in the world. I grew up in a country most people have not heard of. It's called Israel. In a city most people have never heard of called Jerusalem. So I guess the favorite structure, I wouldn't say it's favorite, but certainly I grew up not far away from the Western Wall. The Western Wall is the last remnant of the Jewish temple from like 1,500 years ago. And people sometimes talk about energy of buildings and so on. And it's really only when you go to places like that and you see, I cannot explain it. There's a certain level of energy and feeling that one gets in a place, regardless of whether they are complete agnostics, atheists, or extremely religious or spiritual. And they ought to experience it. And I'd say having grown not too far away, a few miles away from the vicinity of that place is probably karmically linked to me for this lifetime at least.
That's a good choice. I'm not Jewish, but I've been there and I can relate to that. It's a really special place, and I also recommend people to go because even not related with religion, like it's a really, really special place. So I agree with you. Nice place to go. Absolutely. And then finally, before we say goodbye to each other, can you tell everybody where they can know more about Clue or contact you?
Absolutely. Our website is very simply getclue.com, like to get something, and clue, like CLUE.com. We have plenty of information there. On LinkedIn, it's Oded Ran. And luckily I was given a strange name that's very SEO friendly 40 years later. And that'll be the last tip I give you. If you decide to have children, which I highly recommend as the best thing to do, then give them a name that's Googleable. Yeah.
That's a good advice. Luckily, I don't have children yet, so I might think it when I have one. Thanks so much for your time, Oded. It has been a pleasure, and I really enjoyed the time talking to you. So thanks so much for your wisdom.
Pleasure is all mine, and thank you so much for arranging this platform for people to have these conversations.
Absolutely. Hope you enjoy your afternoon. All right?
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks to our listeners. If you like this content, you can find past and upcoming episodes in ascworks.everse.com and at all of our Everse social media. We'd love to hear from you and recommendations for new content, so leave us a DM and we'll make sure to catch it.